So that was some footage shot with a Sigma 20mm f2 lens and the Sony a7 IV, and gotta say, it's actually a really good combo. I mean, not just for video, but for photos as well. I'll show you more photos shot with this combo later in the video, but as far as video goes, like it's pretty solid. Also, if we haven't met before, hi, how are you? My name is Sidney Diongzon. I'm a filmmaker, photographer, and I encourage you to subscribe. It's right over there. Anyway, back to the lens. Let's talk about the build quality first. The build quality of the Sigma 20mm is, well, it's almost like an art lens. Like technically this is a contemporary lens, and most contemporary Sigma lenses have somewhat of a plasticky build. But with this lens, it's almost like a combination of a Sigma art lens and a contemporary lens, and even a little bit of a cine lens just wrapped up all into one build. Here, I'm just gonna detach the lens from the camera. Like just, I don't know if you can see it. It has a very sturdy and metallic build to it, and it really does look like a Sigma art lens. But you got a very smooth focus ring as well as a ridge aperture ring, which you can control if you wanna focus pull. And yeah, it kind of reminds me of a cine lens, a mini cine lens. So overall, the build quality is pretty solid. It's also weather sealed. There's a rubber gasket in the back, so there you go. Oh, and before I forget, the aperture ring is not declickable. Like you do hear the clicks. So if you're not a big fan of the aperture ring being all clicky like this, then maybe this lens isn't for you, but I actually don't mind it. And most times using this lens, I shot at f2, and so it just kind of stayed at f2 the entire time. And so yeah, just so you know, it's not declickable. Now build quality is one thing, performance is another, and with my experience using the Sigma 20mm f2 lens, the overall performance kept up with my Sony a7 IV. Now when it came to autofocus, the autofocus for video sometimes when shooting at f2 sometimes was not on point. I mean, I'd probably say like 80% of the time, autofocus is pretty good for video shooting at that low of an aperture. And of course, when you're shooting at a higher aperture, autofocus was much better. But that's something to know and something that I'm gonna look into further, especially when I compare this lens with the Sony 20mm 1.8. But in terms of photography, the autofocus performance was on point, super fast and accurate. And of course, shooting at f2 gave me this really beautiful bokeh in the background, like just the separation of the subject or object from the background just looked so beautiful and looked really great for video and photos. Oh, and speaking of which, let's go ahead and show you some photos that I shot with the Sigma 20mm f2 lens. Pretty crazy sharp, right? Like especially in the middle. And that's what Sigma is really known for. Like they make some really good lenses that have incredible sharpness, especially in their art series. This is just a contemporary lens, and it almost feels like I was shooting with a Sigma art lens. Like it's that sharp. Now I will say that even though that this lens is super sharp, there is some vignetting happening around the corners. That's just the nature with wide angle lenses. And with any 20mm lens, like it's almost expected to see some vignetting just because that's just the nature of wide angle lenses. Now the question is, can you vlog with this lens? Well, yes, I'm actually vlogging with the lens right now with the a7 IV, and it's totally wide enough to vlog with. Like it's actually really cool. And also, since I'm shooting at f2, like you get that nice blurry background, which I guess kind of makes your vlogs a little more cinematic. Hey, where are you going? Watch out for the snakes. You'll be fine. I'm not using an ND filter right now. I just cranked up the shutter speed because, well, one, I don't have an ND filter size for this lens, but I just wanted to show you what the video looks like without any filters on. And I'm shooting an S-Log3 in case you wanted to know. But yeah, this is the Sigma 20mm f2. Now, why would you get a lens like this? Well, several reasons. You know, you want to maybe shoot landscapes, maybe astrophotography, maybe architecture, and maybe real estate. I don't think it's that wide enough to shoot real estate, but I guess you can. But one thing I noticed when shooting video with this lens, especially doing close-ups, is that it really gave this intimate look to the footage. Like looking at the sequence, it almost kind of reminds me of Terrence Malick films. Like he shoots a lot of intimate shots, a lot of wide shots, a lot of isolated shots, almost existential. I mean, that's a whole discussion in itself in terms of the philosophy of storytelling. But visually speaking, it does remind me of Terrence Malick films. Not saying at all that like my skills are anywhere near Terrence Malick. Like he's up over there and I'm like down over there. But it kind of got me thinking about the characteristics that lenses produce when used in a certain way. Now I have a mad respect for all cinematographers because they have to have so much knowledge to use a specific lens, a specific focal length, a specific aperture, and of course setting up the scene in a certain way with all the lights. To have all that knowledge and to combine all of them in a specific way to tell a story is so difficult to me, and that's why I have so much respect for all cinematographers. And so if you're a cinematographer, hats off to you. But with this lens specifically, like shooting at 20mm at f2 gave this intimate vibe to all my video footage and photos. Like a general rule of thumb is that you're not really supposed to shoot close-ups of people when using a wide-angle lens like a 20mm prime lens. It distorts the face and just doesn't really make the subject look good. But when I was filming this little sequence with my lens, like it really gave off this really intimate vibe, almost as if I was really close to the subject, and I really dig it. And if you saw my previous video, I recently bought the Sony 85mm prime lens because, well, I wanted a prime lens in my camera bag. But ever since playing with the Sigma 20mm f2 lens, it's got me thinking, did I make the right choice?